I've put together this presentation to kind of get us thinking about creativity, how we define it, what is and what is not creative. In that conversation, we'll talk a little bit about art. What is art? How do we define art? How the process and where it's displayed makes a difference. So let's jump in with a few things on this presentation. It's a pretty famous painting by Michelangelo. I think most would agree that they would classify this as art, and I think most would consider it creative as well. We have to think what makes it creative and what makes it not creative for those who don't think it's creative at all. More modern day, we have artists like Banksy and Newman, quite different styles. They're both considered art, but are they creative? And does the medium and place where they're displayed matter? Does the process of the artist matter? Dance seems to be a pretty universal form of creativity. Most consider it an art, and ballet specifically, with the choreography, technique, determination, all these combine to make a pretty creative art form. But what about today? Something like the floss dance. Would we consider this art or creative? And if we think of it as creative, what makes it so? Music is another area of creativity that most people can agree that Mozart, Beethoven, and Tchaikovsky are all considered art. Classics, really. Taking some examples from my era of music, Nirvana, Bananarama, and New Kids on the Block. Yeah, I don't know that that's everybody's style, but would we still would we still consider them creative? Would we consider it art? Wow, it looks like just a jumbled up mess, but for some you may recognize it as computer code and mathematical equations, both used in creating some of the most creative elements that we use in our lives today, like our smartphones, the very platform that our online course can take, the PowerPoint presentation, how I'm recording it. These all can lend themselves to being creative. But do we think of them as creative? Next, we have something as simple as a balloon animal, but it's in a different medium and it's displayed in a different way than it usually is. And on the bottom right is Chihuly Glass, which he's a famous glass blowing artist that he has exhibits here in Oklahoma and in Seattle, Washington. But is this art? Is a blown glass ball art? And furthermore, is it creative? Now, this piece of art may be easily recognizable by a few of us. I'm not sure that I find this creative. I'm not sure that I consider this art, and yet it is. So could we dig a little deeper and find out why? This may be one of the most controversial pieces of art, and this is Duchamp's urinal, and it was displayed about 100 years ago. A common item used and then displayed and called art? I don't know if that's creative or art. Here's another example of applied creativity, if you will. How we plate our food, to friendship bracelets and the different patterns we can have in them, and something like macrame, which is making a huge comeback with different designs and different dyes that can be used on the materials. So we have to think about creativity applied in our lives. Well, does this mean anyone can be creative? And here are a few architectural pieces. One really functional looking, one very just artistic and for the sake of looking at it, aesthetics, and then the Sydney Opera House, which may be one of the most recognizable architectural designs on the planet, functions as a floating opera house. So it's like creativity meets function. So that one seems pretty simple, that it's creative and that it's art. But a sculpture with the water flowing out as hair, is this creative? Is this art? So how do you define creativity? On our Flipgrid responses, we'll have our definitions there. And I hope looking at some of these images maybe helps you start to think about how you see creativity, how you see art, and if you can articulate a definition for yourselves. Looking forward to listening to them.